What's happening, loungers? I hope everybody is doing as great as I am this evening. Shout out to all of you who are in the clouds and for everybody who will catch the replay. Listen, guys, in honor of Pride Month, okay, I most definitely wanted to speak about one of the most fabulous people that I've ever known, okay? Now, I don't know him personally, but every time I hear a documentary about Sylvester or I hear his music or something, it just always brings me back to a certain space, okay? And it's particularly when I was a little kid. I remember hearing a lot of Sylvester's music when I was a kid, okay? And I don't know if it was because I spent times in like hair salons and stuff with my mother where there were gay men that were doing our hair and different things is why I have this connection with Sylvester. But I absolutely love him as an artist. And I just wanted to showcase him today, okay? So even though today is the last day of Pride Month, I most definitely wanted to give him honor, as Sylvester would be about 75 years old now, okay? And during his time when, you know, he was really in his prime, this was not a thing in our society. You know, it was not a thing that was well accepted and it was, you know, widely accepted in our society at the time. So shout out to Sylvester for being a pioneer in the LGBT community and how, you know, he has definitely brought forth and did this fearlessly during his time. So even though he wasn't the only group during the time that was LGBT, he was most definitely fearless in that. And he also did it in a way where he stood out. So it was definitely known that he was LGBT. As opposed to people like the Village People who still wore male clothing and stuff like that. Whereas Sylvester most definitely would wear a dress, okay? Like, and has, you know, lots of videos and lots of things and memorabilia as well of things of this nature. So what I wanted to do is just give you guys a quick synopsis of his life and also his death. And then, you know, we'll just kind of go from there. But I do appreciate everybody for being in the building. And again, make sure that you guys do hit the like button on the way in, okay? All right, so let's get right to this, guys. So Sylvester James was born September 6, 1947, and died December 16th, 1988, okay? He was known mononymously as Sylvester, okay, and was an American singer and songwriter. Now, primarily active in the genres of disco, particularly that, as well as R&B and soul, he was also known for his flamboyant and appearance, okay, as well as his falsetto singing voice. And he hit disco singles in the late 1970s and the 1980s. Now, he was born in Watts, Los Angeles, to a mid-class African-American family, and Sylvester developed a love for singing through the gospel choir of his own Pentecostal church. Now, leaving the church after the congregation expressed disapproval of his homosexuality, He found friendship amongst a group of Black cross-dressers and transgender women who called themselves the Discotes. Now, moving to I think they were called the Croquets or Quoquets or something like that, but they're saying this the Discotes here. So, moving to San Francisco in 1970 at the age of 22, Sylvester embraced the counterculture and actually joined the avant-garde drag group called the Coquettes. So that is where he did join in San Francisco, the Coquettes. Okay, so he was in a different group called the Discotes and now in the Coquettes. Okay, which was producing solo segments of their shows, which were heavily influenced by female blues and jazz singers such as Billie Holiday and Josephine Baker. Now, during the Coquettes' critically planned tour of New York City, Sylvester left them to pursue his career elsewhere. He came to front Sylvester and what he called the Hot Band, okay, and a rock act that released two unsuccessful albums, one on the Blue Thumb Records in 1973 before actually disbanding. Now, focusing on his solo career, Sylvester signed a record contract with Harvey Fuqua of Fantasy Records and obtained three new backing singers in the form of Martha Wash and Izora Rhodes, which is the 2 Tons of Fun, as well as Jeannie Tracy. Now, his first solo album, Sylvester, in 1977, was a moderate success. This was followed with the acclaimed disco album Step 2 in 1978, which actually spawned singles You Make Me Feel Mighty Real and Dance Disco Heat, both of which were hits in the US and Europe. Distancing himself from the disco genre, he recorded 4 more albums, including a live album with Fantasy Records after leaving this label. And then after leaving this label, he signed to Megatone Records. Now, the dance-oriented company founded by his friend and collaborator Patrick Coley is where he recorded 4 more albums, including the Coley-penned hit High NRG, okay, or High Energy track, or Do You Want Funk? Do You Want a Funk? Okay, y'all know that song. Do you want a funk? I don't know. I'm sorry, y'all. I know. I just love that song. But anyway, Sylvester was an activist who campaigned against the spread of HIV/AIDS. And unfortunately, he did die from the complications arising from the virus in 1988 after leaving all of his future royalties from his work to the San Francisco-based HIV/AIDS charities. During the late 1970s, Sylvester gained the moniker of the Queen of Disco, and during his life, he attained particular recognition in San Francisco, where he was awarded the key of the city. Now, in 2005, he was posthumously inducted into the Dance Music Hall of Fame, while his life has been recorded in a biography and made the subject of both a documentary and a musical. Okay, so let's talk about his early childhood a little bit. He was born on September 6, 1947, in the Watts district of Los Angeles, California, in a middle-class family. His mother, Letha Weaver, had been raised near Palestine, Arkansas, into a relatively wealthy African-American family who owned their own farmland. Letha's biological mother, Gertha Weaver, was unmarried and too sickly to care for her child, so Gertha's sister, Julia, known to the family as Juju, became Letha's adoptive mother. In the late 1930s, Julia and her husband took part in the Great Migration of African Americans out of the southeastern United States, relocating to Watts. It was here that Letha was largely raised and where she met and married her husband, Sylvester Sweet James, and the couple moving into a large cottage owned by Letha's parents. Their first child, named Sylvester after his father, was followed by the birth of John Wesley in 1948 and Larry in 1950. Sylvester and his brothers became better known in their predominantly African-American community by their nicknames, with Sylvester being Dooney. Sylvester considered his father to be a lowlife because he was an adulterer and left his wife and children when the boys were still young. Letha and her 3 sons moved to a downtown housing project at Aliso Village before moving back into her parental home at 114th Street in Watts. Letha was a devout adherent of the Pentecostal denomination of Christianity, regularly attending the Palm Lane Church of God in Christ in South Los Angeles. Sylvester and his brothers accompanied her to church's services, where he developed a particular interest in gospel music. Having been an avid singer since the age of 3, Sylvester regularly joined in with gospel performances. The song He sang the song My Buddy at the funeral at one of the other children in the Park Lane congregation. The women at his church described him as feminine and as pretty as he could be, just like his mother. He wasn't rough like the other boys. He was prim and proper. We were always hugging on him and kissing him because he was so cute. Family members also described him as his own kind of boy, born funny, preferring the company of girls and women like his grandmother to that of other boys. He stayed inside a lot, reading encyclopedias, listening to music, and playing his grandmother's piano. When Sylvester would turn down the boys' invitations to play with them, they would say things like he acted like a girl or he was going to be a girl. But his mother would defend him, including his joy at dressing up in her and his grandmother's clothing, saying that he was not a girl, just a different kind of boy, and a valued part of their family. At the age of 8, he was sexually molested by a man at the church, at the time rumored to be the church organist, although Sylvester would always maintain that the interaction had been consensual and not sexual molestation. Sylvester was only a child at the time of this incident, while the assailant was an adult. Sylvester was taken to a doctor after receiving injuries when this man subjected the child to sodomy. It was the doctor who informed Letha that her son was gay, something that she could not accept, viewing homosexual activity as a perversion and a sin. News of Sylvester's homosexual activity actually having been R-worded soon spread through the church congregation, and feeling unwelcome, he ceased his attendance at age 13. During Sylvester's childhood, his mother gave birth to 3 more children by different fathers before marrying Robert Sonny Hurd in the early 1960s, with whom she adopted 3 foster children. A supervisor at aerospace manufacturer North American Rockwell, Hurd's job increased the family's income, and they were able to move into a more expensive, predominantly white neighborhood north of Watts. The relationship between Sylvester and both his mother and stepfather was strained. In the midst of one argument with his mother, Sylvester decided to leave their house permanently. So that is kind of the life of Sylvester and what was going on there. And then we're going to read towards what happened towards the end of his life, because there's like a lot of things that happened in between there, with all of the music and everything else. So let's read from everything that pretty much went on towards the end of his life. Hold on one second, guys. Okay. So this is 1986 to 1988. In 1985, Sylvester's boyfriend, Rick Kramer, became aware that he had become infected with HIV. With no known medical cure, his health deteriorated rapidly, and he died September 7, 1987. Sylvester was devastated, and although recognizing that he too was probably infected, he refused to have his blood tested, only noticing the virus' first symptoms when he developed a persistent cough. Beginning work on an album that would remain unfinished, he moved into a new apartment on Collingswood Street in the Castro, and tried his best to continue performing in the Bay Area, even though he became too ill to undertake a full tour. Eventually diagnosed with AIDS, he was hospitalized for sinus surgery in late 1987. And upon returning to his apartment, he began to be cared for by his mother and Tracy before being hospitalized again in May of 1988, this time with pneumocystis pneumonia. Returning to his flat, he gave away many of his treasured possessions and wrote his will. Having lost a lot of weight and unable to walk easily, he attended the Castro's 1988 Gay Freedom Parade in a wheelchair, being pushed along by McKenna in front of the People with AIDS banner. Along Market Street, assembled crowds shouted out his name as he passed. The subsequent 1988 Castro Street Fair was named a tribute to Sylvester, and although he was too ill to attend, crowds chanted his name to such an extent that he was able to hear them from his bedroom. He continued to give interviews to the media, being open about the fact that he was dying of AIDS, and sought to, in particular, to highlight the impact that the disease was having in the African American community. In an interview with the NME, he stated, "I don't believe that AIDS is the wrath of God. People have a tendency to blame everything on God." For Thanksgiving 1988, his family spent the holiday with him. Although he had developed neuropathy and was increasingly bedridden and reliant on morphine, he died in his bed on December 16, 1988, at the age of 41. Sylvester had planned his own funeral, insisting that he be dressed in a red kimono and placed in an open-top coffin for the mourners to see, with his friend Yvette Flunder doing his corpse makeup. He wanted Tracy to sing at his funeral, accompanied by choirs and many flowers. The whole affair took place in his church, the Love Center, with a sermon being provided by Reverend Walter Hawkins. The event was packed, with standing room only, and the coffin was subsequently taken and buried at his family's plot in the Inglewood Park Cemetery. An album titled Immortal was posthumously released. It contains Sylvester's final studio recordings and was compiled by Marty Bleckman. Unfortunately, guys, I wish that I was able to play some of his music on here tonight, but unfortunately, because of copyright and everything else, I'm just not able to do that. And buying the copyrights for some of this is absolutely tremendously crazy, okay? And obviously for obvious reasons and for good reasons. So shout out to one of my favorite artists in the world, Sylvester. And yes, the 2 tons of fun, absolutely. Diggable Logic, definitely good stuff, right? If you guys ever get a chance and you don't know who they are, make sure that you go out and check them out. I will put a link to some of his music that is right here on YouTube, right in my description box, so you guys can take a look and listen. But I definitely appreciate all of you for tuning in. Let me go ahead and go through the comment section real quick, and then we're going to end the show. Lance, I appreciate that. You said hello, T. Pre and Miss T, and good people. Yes, Sylvester, one of my faves. What's up, Stephanie? Appreciate you. And Diggable Logic, I appreciate you. You said toast up, Miss T. Pre and Loungers. Big ups to Sylvester and the 2 tons of fun. Absolutely. You said, hey, Black Lounge Divine, Miss T. Pre. Cool topic to close out Black Music Month. Sylvester was definitely a legend, for sure. You said, I had his first album. Oh, that's lit. That's lit. Hey, Black Butterfly. Appreciate you. You make me feel so rich, child. That is one of the songs. You said, Sylvester and the 2 tons of fun were some singers, honey. Yes, yes. Diggable Logic. Hell yes. You said the Coquettes were something else. Yes. You said, Stephanie, every time. You said, yep. You said, we lost most of a generation. It hurts when I think about it. Yeah, there was quite a bit of people that I was looking at how many celebrities actually passed away from this disease. Maybe I'll cover that in the Celebrity Tea, because this is going to be one of the series that we'll be doing as well, is Celebrity Tea, as well as right now we're on the Kojic Church. Yeah, maybe I'll cover the deaths because I definitely wanted to cover some. And I wanted to do his because I knew it was Pride Month, and I just wanted to make sure that we got Sylvester in here for this. So shout out to Sylvester for that. But yeah, I'll go ahead and cover that too. He said, I swear half the country is from Arkansas, right? Facts, Stephanie. You said, what? How did the doctor know? I don't know. You said, hey, Gator Girl. You said, hey, peace, Steph. You said, hey, Miss T. Pre. What's up, Redbone? And I appreciate you and Gator Girl being in the building. You said, good evening, Black Butterfly 63 and Lance Christopher. You said pneumococcal pneumonia was usually the end. Yeah. And it didn't even have that wording. It was pneumocystis. I don't even have it in front of me now, but it was a different type of wording than pneumococcal. But yeah. You said, good evening, Redbone. You said, I always admire the way Walter Hawkins and the Hawkins family embraced Sylvester. Yes. You said, yep, the 80s was rough because of folks in denial like Reagan, like Trump, and the COV. Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of denial, and there was a lot of prejudiceness, right? Like fear of the gay community, because they were thinking that the gay community was the reason why it was here. But there were heterosexual women and men also contracted the disease. They were just spotlighting San Francisco and the gay community in that time. And that's unfortunate, But thank God that times have changed and that we're no longer doing stuff like that. He said that was very enlightening of his family, enlightened of his family. Lots of victims' families did not visit them, host funerals, or bury them with the rest of the family. Yep. During that time, it was like a fear, a real fear. I remember, that fear too. During that time, I was a little kid. My mom worked at the hospital, so I remember having those conversations, or at least hearing the adults having those conversations, like about AIDS and HIV. So you said, Miss T, thanks for the backstory. Yep, no problem, guys. You said there is some overlap. He was abused in a Kojic church. Yes, ma'am. We are going to get into Sylvester's story in the Kojic church. I just touched on a little bit of what happened. I do know about that story, and I know extensively about that story. And we're going to talk extensively about it. And yes, it was at the Kojic church that this happened. So shout out to you, Steph, for that, for pointing that out. You said, yep, facts. You said the role and influence of the LGBT community on gospel music is absolutely a fascinating topic. Yes, it is. And we can definitely talk about that too. And just the fact that, that he actually dealt with this and that he was a member of the Kojic church when this happened, and how we're talking about all this stuff right now is just crazy, right? So yeah, we're definitely going to get into all of this stuff. And that's going to be in a future video, though, on what's going on with that. But I did want to make sure that I at least honored this man. And like I said, I wish I had ever had the opportunity to just know him. But I was, of course, a little kid, And then when he died, I was about 10 years old when he passed away. But some of his performances and stuff, where he was wearing like that dresses and stuff like that, I was like 1 year old. You know what I mean? But that, that was just definitely a time that I most definitely remember him. And I remember his music like it was yesterday. And having that connection with him. So rest in peace to him. You said what? You said, whoa, what? You said more Kojic mess? Yes. Him and some other celebrities have been abused in the Kojic church. So we're going to get into all of that stuff, guys. Yeah, we haven't touched even the surface of what's going on with the Kojic church yet. So, but either way, guys, I appreciate all of you for coming in. Make sure that you guys do hit the like button, and we are out of here, guys. So I will talk to you guys soon. The next Kojic video, I think it's coming out Monday. I want to say Monday, might be Tuesday, but either way, I might do some celebrity tea in between there. All right. So I will talk to you guys later. I appreciate you guys for coming in tonight, and peace, guys. Thank you guys for watching, and hit the like button.